Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm Peter Lavelle. Well, we're going to talk about polls, and a lot more polls for the next, I get almost 3 weeks here. I'm, of course, joined by George Szamuely. George, and watching cable, this is all it gets down to. It's who do you want to believe? I watch, I'll tell our viewers, I watch Rising on Hill TV with Crystal Ball and Segra and Jetty, and I watch, of course, Tucker, and once in a while I watch Hannity or Laura Ingraham. And it's all basically, and everyone's getting down to if you believe or you don't believe the polls. That's the single biggest thing out there right now. Okay, and I've been thinking a lot about it, and I've looked at how a lot of people present it. Now we can go to one extreme to the other. CNN has Biden up by 18 points or 14 points, and they're and I think that's truly an outlier. Okay, but that's CNN. Okay, but there are virtually no polls that give any kind of advantage to Trump at all. Zero. There's none out there. And you know as well as I do is that I only focus in on the battleground states. I mean, a national numbers mean nothing to me. Okay, it's the electoral college that you need to win to become president. At least, still, you need the electoral college. So how do you address that, George? Because we all have baked in. To be fair, the polls were off in 2016, but 2-3%, which was enough for Trump to win. But even in the margin of error of all of the polls that I've seen, it's a walk in the park for Biden. How do we square it?
Well, let's remember that in 2016, the polls were off by a lot more than that. Hillary Clinton was leading by
the average.
No. Hillary Clinton, let me finish. Hillary Clinton was leading by double digits going into October. And that wasn't just one or two polls. Many polls had her leading Trump by double digits. There was no poll at all that had Trump beating Hillary Clinton in any of the battleground states. There was a reason why the New York Times said on the day of the election that Hillary Clinton, I think, has a 98% chance of winning, because all the polls had her winning, not just the popular vote, but winning in every single one of the battleground states. And she lost every single one of the battleground states. The polls are doing something wrong. They are not polling properly. They're not polling proper samples. And they tend to be heavily skewed toward Democratic voters. They tend to ignore rural voters where Trump is strong. They tend to ignore various industrial heartlands where, again, Trump is strong. And I think what's also important, and here this is, again, the polls are ignoring it, it is enthusiasm. People have to go out and vote. And if you're not enthusiastic, if you say, I quite like Biden, but come election day, you're not going to go out to vote.
I agree with the enthusiasm issue. I think that's true. But those are good people that are going to vote for him anyway. Okay, that's his base, as it's called. Okay, now there are polling data out there, you can take it or leave it, that even Trump his base is eroded during this campaign. That's what some people say. However, and maybe I will be proven wrong, depending on how long it takes to get the final result, I don't think it has anything to do with Biden. I think it's how you feel about Trump, and I'm convinced of that. And so if you're turned off by Trump, I mean, with Trump, I think we all agree, for better or worse, it's kind of like you can't be a little bit pregnant. I mean, either you are or you aren't. Either you like Trump or you don't like Trump. And there's almost no one left after 4 years of his administration that's in the middle. And I think that, so the enthusiasm issue, it's the like anti-enthusiasm and anti-enthusiasm, but it's around Trump. It has nothing to do about Biden.
But those voters would then have to abandon Trump and go and vote for Biden.
Or not.
No evidence.
or not
There's
vote.
no evidence of that. They might stay home. That's possible, but it's much more likely that people who would vote for the Democrats would stay home. From the polling that we do see, there is much less enthusiasm for Biden among core Democratic constituencies. That's a serious issue. Among the Hispanic voters, he's polling worse than any Democrat nominee in recent years. Among African American voters, Biden is polling worse than any other Democratic nominee. So then the question is, who's going to show up on election day? I tend to think that people will show up for Trump. And I think that the problem that Biden has, which is the guy is old, low energy, unimpressive, a political hack.
Trump but he's not Trump. But he's not Trump. I'm not going to let go of this.
Yeah, but that's the point about your argument. Yeah, those people would vote against Trump anyway. They voted against him in 2016. The question is whether there are additional voters around now who will go out and vote with enthusiasm against Trump. And I'm not sure that there is. I mean, I think it's more likely that people who voted for Clinton last time would either sit on their hands this time, or or just do what they did before. The Democrats have to win additional votes. They have to get some votes from somewhere because they fell short last time. So that's why when you look at the way the election is shaping up, you got a Trump who, if you saw him at Jonestown in Pennsylvania last night, this is a man who just a few days ago was in hospital with COVID. I mean, he exuded animal energy. I mean, you watched him, he was dancing and pumping his fist. And although that's gimmicky and whatever, in America, they vote for presidents, and they want Americans want their presidents to have energy, vitality, a kind of aggressiveness, chutzpah, whatever. Biden doesn't have that. And when you look at every single election, you look at Reagan and Carter. Reagan exuded energy. Carter seemed old and tired. Clinton and Bush, again, Clinton seemed youthful, energetic. Bush seemed old and tired. That I think is, this isn't the parliamentary system where you said, oh well, we just want a solid parliamentary leader, and then they might vote for someone like Biden. It doesn't work in America.
Yeah, well, I think this is really the riddle that we have to resolve here, because if you're right. I mean, this Joe Biden is the least attractive candidate to run for president in my lifetime. Okay, in my lifetime. I mean, this is an awful candidacy. But how does it explain? Because I'm not going to abandon my argument. I mean, the media, I guess we will find out depending on the result, have been able to effectively make the claim that Trump has fumbled the reaction to COVID. Okay, because they keep pounding away at that, which is really, really bizarre to me, because it's a federal republic. I mean, I tried to explain to my Russian friends a feud that a president and a governor has, and they say, how can the governor get away with it? And I said, the governor can do whatever he wants. The president can't do anything to him, can't touch him. Okay, that's very bewildering for a lot of people outside of the United States here. And so the media has been able to, I mean, if somebody breaks their ankle in Hawaii, it's somehow Trump's fault. Okay, that's what ends up happening all of the time. But for me, it's not the COVID issue; it is the economic issue. And I think and again, we're arguing about polls here, but over the last 6 months, over the last 4 months, Trump had a consistent lead over Biden on dealing with the economy. Now that is a dead heat, or he's in negative territory. And I think it's because of the response, the economic collapse as a result of the pandemic. Now, George, over the last few days, no stimulus package, maybe one, we'll do this. When it is so all over the place, this administration has no single voice. It is so confusing. and it's handing on a silver platter a victory to Nancy Pelosi. I mean, I'm just absolutely bewildered. Hang on. Here's a Democrat that wants to spend money right before an election, okay? Certainly it would benefit Trump. And so I would say that, the enthusiasm issue is all nice and fine, but I think, you have to meet people where they are. And a lot of people are really, really hurting. And they look to the president.
But the fact is that what we had yesterday, an extraordinary event on CNN in which Wolf Blitzer got into a quite ferocious argument with Nancy Pelosi, in which he specifically accused her and the Democrats of not going along with a stimulus package. This is sort of so if even on CNN they're not blaming Trump for the lack of a stimulus package, then it's that's why voters would say no. I think the Democrats have a better argument.
I saw that. I mean, her hair was on fire. She was awful, deplorable in that interview. Okay, but George, where have we had it in the last few weeks where Trump gets on Twitter and says to the GOP senators, if you're not on board, I'm going to burn you. I'm going to go to your state and I'm going to burn you. Okay? He doesn't do that. He lets his underlings take care of it. And week after week after week passes. He should be 10 points up. There should be a walk in the park. And he's not doing jack.
Right. He should be. But if you think about his approval rating and where he is in the polls, that's been pretty consistent throughout his term in office. Almost from the beginning, he began in January 2017. His approval rating was 43%. It's kind of what it is now. I mean, there's been really no change. I mean, everything that's happened, he's at 43%. And that was just after his historic victory in 2016. So it does look to me like the polls underestimate Trump's popularity. And that poll, that Gallup poll, which asked, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And that had 56%, a much better indicator of how the vote is going to go than the one that says, well, who do you think who you're going to vote for if the election were held tomorrow?
We'll see if that's highly correlated. That remains to be seen. It's a good point. I saw that too. It remains to be seen if that will be highly correlated, okay? And given what I've heard from you, you wanted that to be the case here. Okay. This is the first in a series that the Gaggle is going to do on polls, okay? I hope over the next 4 or 5 days, maybe even the 2 weeks, George and I, together and separately, will talk to a number of people. Because I think, for me, at the end of the day, unless I'm missing something, this is the key to understanding this election here. And we all got burned in 2016, and that's why I want to talk about this, okay? Because it's out there. And if they're getting the polls wrong, we have to understand why. I mean, you and I, George, have said previously, if someone calls me on my phone and I don't recognize the number, I don't answer it. Okay. Right. And depending on where you are, someone knocks on your door, you're going to answer the door.
That's right. And then you have to ask, who are the sort of people who do answer phone calls, want to talk to strangers? and that might give you an indication of why the polls may be tilting one way, not another. But the fact is, 2016 is not unique. I mean, polls have been spectacularly wrong before. So, there really are questions about how the polling is done, whether the people doing it, the methodology is sound. There is something bizarre about selecting 900 people.
Okay, we're going to wrap up. But I mean, it
represent 300 million.
One group in 2016 that they misread was college-educated whites. Okay, that was one group that there was, and of course, there's all of this obsessing about white urban women. I think white suburban women. I think it's all suburbia, and I think that is the demographic that really is the key to understanding so much of this. It's suburbia because of the huge structural changes going on in cities because they're all so badly run. Okay. When we know by whom, okay. All right, George, we're going to leave it at that here. We got a lot more coming up on polling because I think it's the key to understanding all this. And anyway, it's good stuff, good material for the gaggle here. If you like, please like, share, and subscribe. And we got a lot more ahead.